Sophie, thank you. Our top story. Muslims in Bradford have lost faith in a government scheme designed to tackle extremism, according to the City Council's leader. The authority was given money to implement the controversial Prevent policy, and tonight a meeting was held to discuss how and where the cash has been used. But some fear the scheme is fundamentally flawed. Here's our communities correspondent, Jangir Ahmed.
When Khadija Sugra and Zora Dawood from Bradford took their children and left for Syria in June, they were not the first to be radicalised. Since 2011, the government's Prevent strategy has aimed to stop people from being drawn into violent extremism. Bradford is one of 46 areas to get funding to try and tackle the problem. The city has received an average of £46,000 per year since the policy was introduced and has delivered 7 projects. These include working closely with the community, going into madrasas and schools to educate students of the dangers of radicalisation. Also working with British families who have had family members die in Syria or Iraq fighting for terrorist organisations. Today's meeting, it was discussed for the first time in public how the council plans to spend the money for Prevent work. It revealed that the primary focus will be on education and dialogue. David Green, leader of Bradford City Council, says Prevent needs an urgent rethink.
What we've got to do as a community is build up from the bottom to find local solutions and provide local support to those people who are under threat of being radicalised by one of these extremist organisations.
Prevent already works in schools, mosques and madrasas. After tonight's meeting, Bradford City Council hopes it can continue helping its people. Jangir Ahmed, BBC Look North, Bradford.
With me now is Dr. Afshin Shahi, who's the director of the Centre for the Study of Political Islam at Bradford University. What's wrong with this scheme?
I think the intention is good, but there is a big inconsistency between what the policymakers are intending and how their policies are getting perceived.
But the intention is quite simple, isn't it? To stop people, young people, being radicalised and going over and becoming suicide bombers. That surely is the right intention.
That is the good thing about it. But I'm afraid what makes the Prevent strategy quite problematic for a big segment of the Muslim population is its PR, its image management. I think a lot of Muslim youth, a lot of people who are politically active and politically aware simply perceive the Prevent strategy as an extension.
So they're suspicious of it? They don't
yes,
believe that
an
the government
extension of the British security forces.
So what should be done then, Doctor?
I think one of the key things that the Prevent strategy should focus on is its image management. I think over the last few years, Prevent had a lot of problems in managing its own PR. And if they are absolutely serious about doing something about radicalisation and doing something about extremism, they really have to sort out their own PR problem.
Do you think they can do something about radicalisation, or is it a mission too far?
This is the problem. I mean, how do you want to measure their success? Because we simply cannot measure radicalisation. How can we define radicalisation to begin with? And some of these conceptual issues are still preventing the so-called Prevent strategy to really get a grip with some of the problems that we are facing with at the moment in Britain.
Doctor, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Unemployment in Yorkshire has fallen for the first time since April. Figures for the period between April and June show there were 174,000 people without a job. That's 3,000 fewer than in the previous quarter. But the unemployment rate is still at 6.5%, the third highest in the country. So with more jobs needed, a new organisation aimed at boosting the region's manufacturing sector was launched today. But as Len Tingle reports, Made in Yorkshire isn't an entirely new idea.
It's far from the first time that manufacturers have appealed to patriotism in tough times. This was the Buy British campaign of 1931. It didn't last long.
A chance for some high-fashion pictures by a daring pressman.
It was relaunched in 1968 in rather different style. It too foundered after a few months, after it was discovered that most of the branded goods on show were made in Portugal.
There's no region in the UK more patriotic than Yorkshire people.
So the first question at the launch of a new organisation to promote Yorkshire manufacturing, where did you have